I smell a liar. I smell a scammer. I smell credit card fraud. And there's some like track hawk smoke. This can only mean one thing. The Real Housewives of Atlanta is right around the corner, and the storylines are beginning to cook. Porsha Williams' storyline for season 16 seems to be centered around her husband and all of the felonies and legal problems that he has faced over his lifetime. We're now finally getting some insight into the legal problems that he has faced with a newly leaked court document, 13 pages full of tea. I've read every single page, so you don't have to. Let's go ahead and get into today's video about Simon Guobadia and all of the crazy legal problems that he's had in the past. So in 1982, Simon Guobadia entered the United States and unlawfully decided to overstay his visa. But it wasn't until 1985 when he got married to a woman here in this country 3 years later, where he decided, I'm gonna try again to get my green card. Well, INS decided that his marriage was a sham after his wife at the time basically came clean and said, yeah, we haven't even lived together. This motherfucker doesn't even really want me. So they decided, okay, we're gonna go ahead and start deportation proceedings for Simon Guobadia. He ended up leaving the country in 1985, only to return in 1986 on a visitor's visa where he once again, this seems to be a running theme, overstayed his visa. In 1987, this is when his real legal problems happened, and he was arrested for bank and credit card fraud where he pled guilty to a felony. Now in 1988, this is really important to remember, but he applied for a special citizenship under sort of a work program. It was a work visa program. And under this program, he assumed a second false identity. So this false identity would go on to then become a citizen in 1992, 4 years later, after he had been in the country. And it is this identity that he has continued until this day. The core problems that he is facing nowadays have to do with this second identity, but we're gonna go back to 1988, 1989, where as he's living in this country, he continues to get more and more legal problems. He ends up getting another felony for credit card fraud in 1990, and then he also gets another charge for unlawfully operating a vehicle in 1989. And it's in 91 when the INS is like, okay, we really got to get this motherfucker out of the country. We thought he was out of the country the first time. We really got to do it this time. And this is really important because in 92, 26 days after they decide to deport him is when his second identity, the fake identity, becomes a US citizen. So ever since then, he has been living in this country under that assumed identity, and he has created a life for himself. He's gone on to marry Porsha Williams. It isn't until 2016 when he decides, okay, I'm gonna apply for naturalization. Obviously, under the second identity, he doesn't want anything to do with the first one. So he applies for naturalization in 2016. And that's when the courts not only deny it, but they say, quote, his temporary resident status was unlawfully granted. Get the fuck out is basically what they said. And it wasn't until 2020 when he decided, okay, I'm gonna try this again. I'm gonna try to apply for citizenship, and maybe they forgot who I am. And they would go on to basically sustain the same exact ruling that they had before. And he has been fighting that ever since 2020. He wants to live under this second identity, and they don't believe that he should be able to, because that's not his actual identity. So anyways, here we are, and that's going to be the storyline for the new season of Real Housewives of Atlanta. There's a lot of scamming going on, and honestly, I would expect nothing less for the Real Housewives. I mean, it wouldn't be the Real Housewives if there wasn't fraud, if there wasn't a woman that was married to someone who was committing multiple felonies and stealing people's identities. It just wouldn't feel the same, you know what I mean? So I'm excited to see how they sort of warp this into Porsha's storyline, because the gays just wanted a bunch of shots of Porsha slow motion, walking out of a car, maybe tapping on a computer, because you know she doesn't really know how to use a keyboard that well, but maybe tapping on a computer in a few scenes, you know, going out to lunches, talking about the sex dungeon. Well, Candy's not going to be on the show anymore, so she could bring that up. She might get sued though. But we wanted that, but I mean, this is good too. I'm really happy to see her sort of navigate the situation and do it flawlessly with all that body. Let me know how you feel. Drop down in the comments below and let me know how you feel about all of this, all these charges, and how you feel about Porsha returning to the Real Housewives of Atlanta. And I gotta get out of here because this stink, this like Atlanta stink is just filling the air. And I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye guys.